Hello, and welcome to the 18th episode of Comic Book Talk. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about another one of my favorite Transformers miniseries titled Hearts of Steel. Let's get into it. Transformers Hearts of Steel is a 4-issue miniseries that was published in 2006 by IDW Publishing. It got tagged under the Transformers Evolution name, but it was the first and only series that IDW did that was published under Transformers Evolutions, which is kind of interesting and makes me wonder what else could have came out under the Evolutions name. Anyway, Hearts of Steel is set in an alternate G1 continuity where the Transformers land on Earth in the late 19th century, whereas most are set in the 20th century. Hearts of Steel was written by Chuck Dixon, with art by Guido Guidi, but originally the art was going to be done by Ted McKeever, who did the art that would become the wraparound cover of the first issue. While this miniseries did technically end with the first issue, IDW did eventually revisit Hearts of Steel universe with a 2-issue tie-in that was a part of the Infestation number 2 event. Then, in 2014, the series would be brought into the modern day when it crossed over with X-Files Conspiracy. Finally, in 2017, the story would be added to the 2005 IDW continuity with the series Revolutionaries. So what is the story of Hearts of Steel? Here's the condensed version. Beginning on Earth in an ice age, the Transformers are engaged in a battle while having adopted bizarre animal alternate forms. As the climate cools, both sides retreat underground and enter stasis, and they did not awaken until the late 19th century. Both sides started to make alliances with humans, and also started using technology of the time to continue the war. The Decepticons were attempting to reach an electrical generating station in New York City to fuel their war machine. Historical figures like John Henry and Mark Twain play prominent roles in the story as well. Now, what's interesting about the story is that trying to nail down precisely when it takes place is rather difficult, because there's a lot of contradictory information that doesn't match up with events in real life. For example, there's no mention of the Civil War, so that means the story would have to take place after 1865, but Mark Twain lived in San Francisco from 1864 to 1866. However, in the story, it does appear that he lives there despite, in the final issue, claiming to have a daughter, which would then possibly put the story anywhere between 1872 and 1874. Another example is how in the final issue, there is this race to New York where it's noted that Thomas Edison completed his first electrical generating station, which in real life would not have been operational until 1882. Plus, when the universe was revisited within Infestation 2, that part of it was specifically set in 1888, and it's shown that all the returning human characters did not age a day. Even Hasbro themselves don't seem to know when the story takes place, given that their own source book says the story takes place 150 years before, at the time, present day. And at the time, present day was 2017. So that would put the story in 1867, which still doesn't make things add up at all. I suppose we'll just never truly know when the Hearts of Steel story takes place. There is just so much that I love about this miniseries. I got this at the height of filling in my Transformers comic book collection. Yeah, the story is interesting, and, I love the use of historical figures throughout, but you cannot talk about Hearts of Steel without mentioning the character art. Hearts of Steel has some of the most interesting Transformers character art I've ever seen, and that anyone will probably ever seen, and everyone still seems to love to this very day. The Autobots, they turn into kinds of trains. Megatron turned into a literal cannon. Scourge turned into one of those giant airships. The Seekers were 19th century biplanes. the Insecticons formed like one big train, Shockwave turned into a warship, and so on. Honestly, the art and concept art is just so cool and so unlike anything ever seen with Transformers. Definitely not something that we'll ever see on screen either, I don't think. I really wish that IDW Publishing or some other comic publishing place would do something like this again with Transformers, as it's just so interesting to see what kinds of things you can make them turn into. This is the kind of stuff that I wish we'd get on screen. It would be so different, so cool to get a movie or a series within this universe. My only criticism is that outside of the X-Files crossover, I really didn't care for them bringing Hearts of Steel Bumblebee specifically into the Revolutionary storyline. And that's mostly due to the fact that instead of calling him Bumblebee, they called him Centurion, I think it was, or some form of that word. And I thought that was dumb. Like, I really thought that was dumb. But something that I do love is that these designs are just, they're popular enough that third-party toy companies actually made attempts to make actual toys of these characters. If I remember, I believe that third-party companies knocked out an Optimus Prime, a Bumblebee, the Seekers, and Shockwave. I could be missing somebody, I'm not really sure. But I just wish they would have done more of them. I know people have done, like, customs and stuff, but, like, bleh. I think it's easy for me to say that I would totally recommend giving Hearts of Steel a read if you can. It's definitely one of those more unique miniseries that IDW made, and still one that fans love to this very day. But that's all I got for this episode, so if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.